realize that this world is for us. It's not for someone else. It's not a story being told about somebody. It is a life that God is presenting to us. And what we make of it will determine what it will do for us and with us. I want us to read it for the very last time. 1, 2, go. So I stationed people behind the lowest sections of the wall at the vulnerable areas. I stationed them by families with their swords and spears and bows. After I made an inspection, I stood up and said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, don't be afraid of them. Remember the great and awe-inspiring Lord and fight for your countrymen, your sons and daughters, your wives and homes. When our enemies realized that we knew their scheme and that God had frustrated it, every one of us returned to his own work on the wall. So this morning we'll be looking at returning to build. Returning to build. Last Friday we saw that when we are tired, when we become tired, when the work is frustrating, when the work is overwhelming, that instead of giving up, that God requires us to take a break. And we said that to take a break means to have a retreat, to wait upon God, to ask God for help, to know what's next to do. And having said that, today we saw that after the retreat, we are expected to return back. Never ever allow a situation in your life to frustrate you out. Never ever allow a challenge in your life to frustrate you out of your Christian faith. Never ever allow any issue in your marriage or in your business or in your work or in any project at all to frustrate you out. The Bible said, when all is said and done, we return back to continue our work. We return back to continue to serve God. We return back to continue to work. That is very heartwarming. That is very encouraging, because the purpose of the war zone in which our lives are immersed in, the purpose of the crisis in our world is to frustrate people. The purpose of the troubles around you is to frustrate you, to cause you to give up, to cause you to resign to faith. But God is saying that you are to always come back to work. Why should I return back to what almost frustrated me or to what terrified me? We remember that in verse 14, they were being encouraged. Don't be afraid, because they were already afraid. I don't know the things that are frightening your life already. I don't know those areas where you're already frightened. God is saying, I am here with you. God is saying, I have not abandoned you. God is saying, look well, I am here. And so, why should I return to build? Why should I keep faith with God? Why should I continue to serve God? Which is what the book of Nehemiah is teaching us as at where we are today. One singular reason is because God is with you, and God will fight for you. I combine two of them together to help us appreciate it. God will not only be with you, but He will fight for you. That is the singular reason to return back to work. That is the singular reason not to give up. That is the simple reason why we should. Sometimes we say, God is with us. We say, yes. But with the things happening around us, it doesn't really translate to it. And so, God is with me, yes. But the troubles are many. So I want you to know that God is with us and God will fight for us. I want to show you two places where God fought for His people so you can see the result. I'd like us to start with Exodus chapter 14. I will read from 10 to 14, and I will jump down to 26 to 31. Exodus chapter 14. This is the children of Israel, a people who are looking or fighting for their freedom, just like you are fighting for your freedom from the works of darkness, from sickness, from poverty, from struggles. Every single one of us are human beings are fighting for one freedom or the other. Freedom from poverty. We are fighting just like the children of Israel. And Pharaoh, like the devil and all our problems, are not usually willing to give up, to allow our freedom. They would go the extra mile to keep us in check. They will go the extra mile to trouble our lives, to attempt to frustrate us. And so Pharaoh continued. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up and saw the Egyptians coming after them. Then Israel were terrified and cried out to the Lord for help. Remember 14 of Nehemiah 4 said, do not be afraid. People are afraid because there is danger around them. We don't just become afraid if nothing is happening. People become afraid of their finances if they are owing bills and they are not able to pay. People become afraid if they have no job. People become afraid if they are struggling in their academics. People become afraid if their relationships are toxic. So, people don't just become afraid. Something happens to make people afraid. In this case, they saw the armies of Pharaoh. And meanwhile, they have no army to protect them. They are just ragtag people fleeing and running for their freedom, with all their animals and children and wives and everything. And look at a formidable army. In their days, Egypt was like the U.S. Army today, the best, the strongest in the world. So they saw that formidable army coming for a kill. Of course, they became afraid. But in their fear, they knew that God is with them. They said to Moses, "Is this because there are no graves in Egypt that you took us out, or you took us to die in this wilderness? What have we done? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt?" You see, when you become afraid, you are bound to say a lot of things that are not convenient. A lot of things that under normal circumstances you wouldn't have said. You are bound to behave irrationally. You are bound to misbehave. That's what we are seeing here. So they continued, "Isn't this what we told you in Egypt? To leave us alone so that we may serve the Egyptians. It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness." Now they started a comparative analysis of their lives. Maybe it would have been better for me if I wasn't a Christian. Maybe it would have been better not to marry at all. Maybe. When you are in a challenging situation, please, just look unto God. Avoid the things you say, most of the things. But Moses said to the people, "Don't be afraid." The same thing that was said in 10. Don't be afraid, because all you are saying now is a display of fear. Your actions now, your responses is a demonstration of fear. Moses reminded them, when God is with you, don't be afraid of the devil. Don't be afraid of what is going on. Just seek God first. Don't be afraid. Stand firm and see the Lord's salvation. He will provide for you today. See the salvation the Lord will provide for you today. King James said, the Lord will fight for you, and you will be calm, or you will be quiet. The Lord will fight for you. That is why you should forget the intimidation of the enemy, because that is their destructive tendencies. When they take you away from looking at God, trusting God, hoping on God, they complicate your situation. They enlarge the situation. Moses said, go back to trusting God. verse 15. Okay, let me jump to 26 because of my time. Then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the sea, so that the water may come back on the Egyptians, on their chariots and horsemen. Go. I want to get to 31. So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and as daybreak, the sea returned to its normal depth. While the Egyptians were trying to escape from it, the Lord overthrew them in the sea. The waters came back and covered the chariots and horsemen, the entire army of Pharaoh that had gone after them into the sea. None of them survived. None. But the Israelites had walked through the sea on dry ground, with the waters like a wall to them on their right and their left. That day, the Lord saved Israel from the power of the Egyptians. And Israel saw Egyptians dead on the seashore. When Israel saw the great power that the Lord used against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord, and they believed in him and in his servant Moses. Simply put, our fear is an indication of our lack of trust in God. Our fear is a demonstration of our lack of faith in God. But we see the story. We need to return to build. We need to return to trusting God. We need to return to be confident in God, because our God will fight for us. Because our God is by our side. Because when God is with us, we are the majority. Nehemiah said to his people, do not be afraid. Don't forget God. Don't forget his power. Don't forget that he will fight for us. And we have seen that as God fought for Israel, the greatest army in their generation were put to shame. They were killed. That best battalion that was sent forth, they all died. All of them. I don't care how skillful the devil is. I don't care how powerful the devil is. When God fights for you, victory is sure. In 2 Chronicles, we see the same thing happening. In chapter 20, from verse 20. 2 Chronicles 20. This is the story of Jehoshaphat and his people, the people of Judea and Jerusalem, when they had a lot of challenge and trouble. You see, there is nothing you are going through today that some people somewhere have not gone through. And there is nothing we are going through today that people will not go through in the future. The difference is usually, where is God in what you're going through? Have you placed God as an appendix? You want to just do it by yourself and handle it yourself. And when it's becoming complicated, you now want to remember God. Or do you remember, know, and believe that God is with you all the way? And that He will fight for you. And that there is no one God fights for that will not be victorious. It doesn't matter how the devil schemed through. So we saw Jehoshaphat and his people. In the morning, they all got up and went to the wilderness of Tekoa. As they were about to go out, Jehoshaphat stood and said, "Hear me, Judah, and you inhabitants of Jerusalem. Believe in the Lord your God. You will be established. And believe in his servants. You will succeed." Let's go. Reading till 24. Then he consulted with the people and appointed some to sing for the Lord and some to praise the splendor of his holiness. When they went out in front of the armed forces, they kept singing. They gave thanks to God for his faithfulness, for his love endures forever. The moment they began their shouts of praises, the Lord set an ambush against the Ammonites, Moabites, and all the inhabitants of Mount Seir, who came to fight against Judah, and all of them were defeated. The moment they began to sing and praise God, God set into the battle. All of their enemies were completely defeated. Let's see how they were defeated. In 23. The Ammonites and Moabites turned against the inhabitants of Mount Seir and completely annihilated them. God caused confusion in their midst. So out of the three parties, two joined their hands together and finished one. That's the confusion of God. When God confuses your enemy, they kill themselves. You just watch. When God fights for you, he uses things that is not conventional. He uses things that are sometimes too ordinary. Sometimes you will never think of. Even wind becomes a weapon of war in the hand of God. Everything around becomes an instrument of war if God wants to fight. He uses the enemies or friends alike when he wants to fight. And the Bible said that God will fight for you in what you are going through. And so they fought and completely annihilated them. When they had finished with the inhabitants of Seir, they helped destroy each other. When they finished the job of destroying Mount Seir, they now turned to each other. Everyone against his neighbor. 24. When Judah came to a place overlooking the wilderness, they looked toward the multitude, and there were corpses lying on the ground. Nobody escaped. Let's go back to Nehemiah chapter 4. I just showed you that when God fights for you, there will be no escape for your enemies. There will be no escape for those things that are hell-bent on destroying your life. There will be no escape for all the schemes of the enemy against you. I got it. They saw it here in Nehemiah. The moment they realized that God was fighting for the Jews, the enemies gave up. They say, God is fighting. In 15. The moment they saw it, when they realized that God is frustrating them, they gave up. The enemy is only strong when God is not in what we are doing. The enemy is powerful when God is not happy with us. The enemy is strong when our lives are not pleasing to him. This morning, like Nehemiah said, be strong in God, for God is with you, and God is fighting for you. So why do we need to return to what we are doing? Because God is with us and God is fighting for us. And when God is fighting for us, we can never be defeated. My prayer is that the Lord will fight for you. Can you say, "Oh Lord, fight for me"? Can you say it as a prayer? "Oh Lord, fight for me"? Can you say it one more time? I pray that God will fight for you and give you victory over your enemies in the name of Jesus. Secondly, I'll close with this. Why should I return to build? Apart from that, the Lord is fighting for you. Let's look at verse 14. I am returning to build because I want to have a legacy. He said, remember what you're doing. Fight for your country. Fight for your sons. Fight for your daughters. Fight for your wives or your husbands. What does that mean? Nehemiah was saying, you are not just fighting for yourself. You are laying a legacy. What you are returning to build is what is a legacy? A legacy, if we look at when people leave will for their loved ones, he left $1 million insurance for me. He left me this house, this property. He left that business. Those are what we call legacies. Legacy is something you leave when you are gone for somebody. Legacy is what you are remembered for when you are not there. I want to read somewhere in Exodus chapter 3 that will make much sense for us this morning. Exodus chapter 3 verse 15. God also said to Moses, say this to the Israelites, Yahweh, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever. This is how I am to be remembered in every generation. What was God saying there? Abraham laid a legacy of serving God, that even when he was gone, that legacy was still speaking. Do you realize that you can lay legacy with serving God? Do you realize that building this church together is a legacy we are laying? That even when we are gone, if Christ tarries, you will still be remembered. Isaac laid a legacy of serving God, that even when he was gone, his service is still speaking to every generation. Jacob laid a legacy of service, that even when he was gone, his service is still speaking. Brethren, God is calling us to return to build, because it is a legacy that will outlive us. He said, do it for your countrymen. In this context, do it for God, for the citizens of heaven. Do it for your children. Do it for your spouse. Do it for the society. The people, let's go back to Nehemiah. The people return back to build. 15. The people return back to build the wall. Remember, as at this stage, the walls have started to be built, but there were still spaces in between. The one this family built and the one the other family built. There were still spaces in between. They are now returning back to complete. They are now returning back to be a very strong team. They are now returning back to dot their I's and cross their T's in the projects that they are handling. They are now returning to finish the job, because it will be a legacy that when they are no more. Can I ask you a question? What will you be remembered if you're gone today? Will anybody even miss you? What will you be remembered for? Will we remember you in this church? Or just we mourn for you for 1 month, 2 months? And will your impact be felt? I'm asking you this because the world in which we are is a building project. What you're doing with your life is a building project. The career you are pursuing is a building project. Your relationship is a building project. God is saying, I am with you. Return to build. Do it for your countrymen. Do it for your family. Do it for your spouse. Do it for your society. For I shall be known by this name forever, because they built a legacy through service. Each time you look at Abraham, you remember that he served God all his life. God is asking you to lay a legacy. We don't forget our grandparents who bequeathed us a building, a property, a company, who gave us an insurance worth so amount. We don't forget them. Even if you try to, the day you see the building, you know who gave you the building. That's what is called legacy. What is the legacy that the world will remember you for? Or better so, that the kingdom will remember you for. I'd like you to pray. It is time to cheer up and put our hands back to work. Work doesn't kill. Work only makes us better. I'd like you to talk to God for a minute. Ask God, please help me. I've seen that with you I can overcome. Help me to overcome all the challenges around me. Help me, Lord. I beg you, help me. Help me. Help me. Help me. Help me. Help me, oh God. Help me. Jesus' mighty name we pray. Sister Angie, let me pray for you.